As promised, the next day a car was parked outside of my house, all shiny and new, with the driver dressed in matching black, standing next to its door. I stopped when I saw it. "Nope," I said, and started walking towards the tower. It wasn't like I wanted to walk, but being seen on Hell's Kitchen with that kind of car meant you had money, which I didn't, and it made you a target. People knew me here. They knew where I lived. If they thought I had somehow managed to get some good money, they might try to break into my place, or just rob me in the middle of the street. That was not happening. I was working for Tony Stark, but the world didn't need to know. The driver was completely confused. He stood there not knowing what to do. Maybe he thought it wasn't me who he had to pick up, so he continued to wait there. I walked looking at the ground, thinking over the research that I had read the day before. I had peeked into some of Stark's code, and my mind almost exploded. It was too much information. I was really surprised that just one man had been able to do so much. He must have worked really hard. I was wrong about Tony Stark. I thought he would be arrogant and kind of a jerk. But he was neither. He was exactly what an Avenger should be. A good person, and, on top of that, not a stupid one. I was so deep into my own thoughts, I didn't realize whom I was walking towards until he bumped into me. The second I saw who it was, it became pretty clear that he had done it on purpose. "Whoa, Walker," he said. "You're back." I looked up at the sound of the familiar voice. Earth swallow me now. Eric Butcher was in front of me, with his little posse of underdogs. "Yeah," I said dryly. "Good. Good." He licked his lips, darting his eyes to his followers, who were all giving me hungry smiles. They were losers. But losers with knives hidden inside their jackets and boots. "We missed you, Walker." "It's Atwood now," I corrected, rubbing my face, not wanting to get into it. He rose his brow once, nodding slowly. I was pretty sure he didn't care. "Atwood. Yeah, listen. Do you still need that little toy you asked for? I had a beautiful 25 baby Browning. Perfect for the weaker sex." He tried to make the gun sound enticing, but it just made me cringe so hard it hurt me. "Is that the one you used to make yours look bigger?" I asked. It wasn't smart to make guys like Butch look bad, but he just made it so easy. One of his guys snickered, but the rest were stoic. And Butch's face went from 0 to 100 in 1 second. He grabbed my arm hard. "What did you say?" he whispered threateningly. I opened my mouth, maybe to apologize. I didn't know I wasn't fast enough. "Miss Atwood," someone said behind the guys. "Are you all right?" They all turned around and saw a suited man with round sunglasses and a cane, which he held close as if resting on it. "Mr. Murdoch," I whispered, way too relieved. Even these guys knew better than to mess with a lawyer, a blind one at that. The potential lawsuit would be glorious. Butch looked at me and whispered, "This ain't over." Then they all left. "Are you all right?" he repeated. I wiggled the arm Butch had grabbed. It was going to be sore, but I was fine. I nodded. "Miss Atwood," he repeated. He was still waiting for my response. I mentally slapped myself. He was blind. He couldn't have seen me nod. "Yes," I overcompensated. "Yes, thank you, Mr. Murdoch." "Good. You should be more careful, Miss Atwood," he said. "Rick Butcher is a really bad company." I chuckled. "If only you knew," I said more to myself. "I can walk with you, if you want," he offered. "Oh, you don't have to," I said. "I don't want to make you late." But he smiled. I wonder what color his eyes were. I couldn't see them behind the red-colored glasses. "I insist," he said. I accepted. I liked Mr. Murdoch. When I was arrested a couple months back, Mr. Murdoch came forward to be my lawyer. Pro bono, he said. But then some other lawyer from a big firm stepped into the room and hurried him out. Leslie let him. I thought it was a mistake, and I was right. The big firm lawyer was more than happy when they sentenced me to 5 months of juvie. I was sure Mr. Murdoch would have fought harder than that. How did you know it's Atwood now? I asked suddenly. He smirked. I followed the trial, he said. You changed your name in the middle of it. Yeah. I trailed off. I like Atwood, he said, encouraging. Cara-Atwood has a nice ring to it. It does, doesn't it? I smiled slightly. Miss Atwood, my driver called. He had finally caught up and was holding the door for me to get in. He looked pissed. Understandable. I had that effect on people. I had had enough adventures on the streets of New York, and we were already outside Hell's Kitchen. I thought there was no harm in letting him drive me. I said goodbye to Mr. Murdoch and thanked him for walking with me. And I got into the car. Stark would come to the lab, work for a while, and then get called out. From what I overheard, the Avengers were trying to find a scepter of some kind, and they were sure someone from Hydra had it. That was bad news. Hydra was an organization that was created during the Second World War by a crazy Nazi scientist, and they had spent all their free time doing evil. They had been destroyed, courtesy of Captain America, but a little while ago, the world found out they were still at it. They had infiltrated an organization called S.H.I.E.L.D., which were the good guys, and tried to, basically, kill a lot of people. The Avengers stopped them. But S.H.I.E.L.D. had been dismantled too, and now there were rogue Hydra agents scattered around the planet. So the Avengers were hunting down the last of Hydra's camps. Every time there was an alert of a possible target, Stark would leave to talk to someone else. Maybe someone was outside, in the huge living room next to the lab, but the windows of the lab were tainted, so I couldn't see. Then he would come back, and we would spend beautiful hours in silence. I was too focused reading anyways. I really wanted to finish the last of the damned reports and start with the code. I was even taking notes, so the different sheets were starting to invade my table. Tony, here you are, a woman said. I peered over the computer to see a redhead dressed in a gray woman suit coming toward us, determined. Stark stopped what he was doing to give his undivided attention to this woman. She hadn't lifted her eyes from the tablet she was holding. Something in there was clearly bothering her. Did you recently use $2 million to buy some... She stopped to look at him and noticed my presence. Hello. I smiled awkwardly with my lips pursed. Let's say I did. Why? Stark said, walking towards her, without minding me. Who is she? She asked him as if I couldn't hear them. She is, Stark trailed off, an intern from the Stark internship program. I thought we didn't choose the interns for another 2 months, she said, not buying it. I really liked her application, he said. I frowned when I heard that, even though I tried to look inconspicuous. She crossed her arms over her chest. I guess the issue she had come here to deal with wasn't important anymore. Suddenly, Stark spending $2 million was less important than my presence. Can I see that application? She asked, half inquisitive, half amused. You already saw it, he said. 2010. We were hacked. Pepper's eyes widened alarmed, and her head snapped towards me. That was you? She demanded. It was, I said slowly and looked at Stark cautiously. But I didn't think you knew. I recognize your style, he whispered without moving his eyes from Pepper, taking her away. Can I talk to you for a second? They were too far for me to hear, but I distinguished her say some words like criminal, are you insane, and no. Meanwhile, he said something along the lines of reformed, project, and please. She spared me a glare and then nodded resigned. Stark guided her to the elevator. I peered over the computer, trying not to get caught watching them, and saw them kiss. I returned to look at my computer and tried to erase the image of Stark having any intimate relationship with another creature. I guess that means I'm staying. Stark came back and clapped his hands together. Back to work, he announced. We worked from 9 till 6, and, in the end, Stark left me alone in the lab. I had finished reading all of the university papers, and now I was halfway through the code of Jarvis, specifically the Iron Legion. It was amazing. There were robots controlled by Jarvis, and it used them to help Stark in situations of danger. But they were not quite like Jarvis. I knew Stark wanted me to do something with them. An upgrade, maybe? But I still didn't know what I could do, and honestly, I couldn't see anything to be done. What the hell was Stark thinking? What more did he want to do with them? I pondered this the whole day and came up with nothing. The technology that was used here was the best that existed, but somehow, Stark wanted something better. This was way over my head. The car is waiting for you, Miss Atwood. Jarvis interrupted my train of thought. Yeah. I turned off my computer. Hey, Jarvis, I said absent-minded. Could you gather all the info you can on the drive that I have? It's called Dietrich. I want to see what you find. I will ask Mr. Stark for authorization, Miss Atwood, Jarvis told me. I hummed. I was so tired. Yeah, okay. See you tomorrow, Jarvis, I said and stopped. I was strangely starting to feel like I had to say these things to Jarvis. It was a machine. I shouldn't have to say goodbye to it. I shook my head and left. Good night, Miss Atwood, it responded. I told the driver to stop when we were about to enter Hell's Kitchen. When he told me that Mr. Stark had specifically told him to drive me home, I started to complain about how I had spent the whole day cooped up in a lab and I needed to stretch my legs. I think he stopped the car just so I would shut up. But a victory was still a victory. When I was almost home, I saw them. Rick and his guys. They looked at me and smiled. And then Rick took something from his jacket. It made me stop. I didn't see from afar, but I didn't want to take any chances. When a car drove by and hit them with the front lights, I saw how it shone. It was a fucking knife. Shit. Messing with him in front of his guys had been a stupid move. I doubled back and walked faster. I peered over my shoulder and saw them following me. I started to run. There were a couple of alleys where I could lose them, so I hurried there. I ran into the alley that would lead me to another street. I would shake them off among the crowd. But I got it wrong. I was face to face with the wall at the end of the freaking alley. Fuck, I swore under my breath, and turned around slowly. The guys were a couple of meters in front of me, all nicely lined up. Rick, fancy seeing you here, I said. All my fights, or beatings, had taught me that to survive, I needed to be one of the three things. Strong, fast, or funny. I didn't excel at any of them. He licked his lips and smirked. His face stated business. He had no time to talk. I knew what was coming, and I wasn't surprised when the first fist collided with my face, or when I fell and they kicked me. The one kick on the face did faze me a little. That was low, even for them. 5 against 1, someone said. Doesn't look like a fair fight. I was on the floor, whipping my bloody lip with my hand and shielding my stomach with the other arm. You think? What came after was a blur. A red shadow kicked their asses, and in no time, they were all knocked out. The red silhouette stood next to me and helped me up. I finally got a good look at him. I knew him. They called him Daredevil, the defender of Hell's Kitchen, a vigilante. "Are you all right?" he asked with a deep voice. "Yeah," I said, whipping my lip again. "You could have shown up just a little sooner, though." He scoffed. "Can you get home?" I nodded. "Yeah," I said. I started to walk and had to awkwardly avoid stepping on my fallen attackers. They got what they deserved. "Thanks," I said, turning towards the red vigilante. But, to my surprise, he was gone. I got home with no further problem, though I felt a shadow following me at all times. Maybe it was just my paranoia. Or maybe Daredevil was still looking over me. I tried to open the door as silently as I could. But Leslie was like a fucking radar. She knew something had happened. It was as if she smelled the blood. "What happened?" she said, alarmed. "A warm welcome," I said as she grabbed my face as gently as a bulldozer. She touched my swollen eye, making me twitch in pain. She sighed. "I'll grab the ice," she said, giving up on me.